Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the 20th episode of the FPL Wire powered by DreamSetGo. We are recording ahead of Game Week 21. I'm your host Zophar, and I'm joined as always by Twitter's stats guru, Big Man Bakar. How's it going, bro?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Zoff. It was a decent game week for me. I at the moment I'm on 54 points. Gundogan doing the bulk of the work for me. Other than that, I had Watkins who did well. Unfortunately, and I know you're gonna give me a lot of flack about this. I had Soucek on my bench, but the pain was eased by the Cancelo 17 pointer coming in. That very night. So I'm very happy with the way things are going, and I own Son, Salah, Robertson heading into the night. So hopefully more points to follow.
Fantastic. And we also have my co host Lateriser back with us. He's been on the mend. How's it going, Ella?
Remember episode one when we just started this pod and you spoke about how it was an emotional time for you with Sterling last season? I think I've found my emotional guy this season. It has to be Timo Werner. 3 games, he's not started any of them. I thought your new manager would finally start him this game week. That didn't happen either. So yeah, it's been one painful week after another. But the good thing is that the next game week is not very far away. It's 2 days away, and after a night's disappointment, you're filled with hope again. In this game, I'm on 41 points, -4 with Son and Salah to go. Happy with my transfer. I got Cancelo in, and I'm on triple city defense, which came through. So quite happy with that. But I hear you're flying in the FPL worlds of
Yep.
monster score for you. But
Thanks.
before we get into FPL, how do you feel about Frank Lampard not being with the club anymore? I thought I'd ask you that.
I'm gutted that he's gone, but I'm confident he will be back at some time again in the future.
With Chelsea?
Yes, definitely. In my
All right.
lifetime, I will see him again as Chelsea manager. I'm confident.
Any problems with how Roman has dealt with this entire situation? I've been reading up a fair bit in terms of how he's been left to made to leave the club and all of that, and it feels like he was on the chopping block since day one. It was I feel like it was an appointment just to handle that 1 year where you guys had a transfer ban. It was a pure PR play, in my opinion. Do you also see it that way?
I mean, the one thing I have to say is that ultimately I trust in whatever Roman does. He's taken the club from obscurity to where it is. So if he's doing something, I trust it's for the right reasons. Whether it's for a PR play or not, it's not for me to comment on. Ultimately, I support Chelsea and will continue to support Chelsea, whoever the manager is.
All right. Fence sitting from Zophar there. I mean, come on, you have to call Roman out there. You have to call Roman out there, but fair enough. I mean, and especially when it comes to Lampard, somebody you idol. I thought it was harsh. I personally thought,
Definitely. I thought it was harsh, but ultimately, I have to look at it that it was probably taken with the best interests of the club in mind.
fair enough. Fair enough. And so FPL flying, I think 70 odd something this week. How's the week been for
Yeah,
you?
it's been great so far. 71 points with two to go. Soucek, Gundogan, and Cancelo delivered big. And my favorite player, Harry Maguire, finally got on the score sheet. So that was nice. Just inside the top 50k right now. I'm hoping Kane doesn't put a big dent in it.
Yep. I remember we were talking about your potential moves, and you were on day one you were on Foden, and then the next day you're thinking switched and you moved towards Gundogan. What happened in that 1 day interim period, and what made you switch? Because it was a close call for you, I remember.
It
I
did, but
convinced him.
I right. So I
What
think,
did Bakar say?
yeah, let Bakar. What did you say, Bakar? Let's hear that.
No, I'm just messing. I'm just messing. I was in fact the one who was actually confused between which city mid to go, and actually Zoff encouraged me to take a hit to bring Gundogan in. So I'm just messing with him.
Yeah, so I think my inner dullard prevailed. Ultimately, I looked at how close all the fixtures were. I wanted, with the possibility of a double game week in 24, I wanted somebody who was going to play all the minutes. And I generally get anxiety from sweating on team sheets, so I didn't want to go through that.
Nice. Keep it going. Keep it going. 10K in sight very soon. Where are you ranked right now?
Out of 49k.
Nice. Shouldn't be too long. Shouldn't be too
Hope
long.
so.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you guys. I mean, last week was so bad. I was on the bed doing nothing but watching TV for 5 days because I couldn't do anything else. This just feels nice. Happy to be back. Happy to
Yep.
be chatting with you
Yeah,
boys.
great to have you back. So, just a reminder to everyone to like and subscribe as usual. And before we kick off, a quick word about our sponsors. DreamSetGo is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. You can find links to the products in the description below. The FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Scout Network, and all stats used in this podcast are taken from the FFS members area. Please sign up if you haven't already.
And as you guys already know, DreamSet goes in the midst of tying up with a lot of football clubs at the moment. They have some exciting offers lined up. So, in case you want access to these early bird offers, there's a Google form in the link. Please, in the link details, there's a Google form link in the details below. Kindly fill that up so you get all the necessary information. Just taking you guys through the agenda today, Bakar's got some three excellent stats for us. So, we're going to be starting with those and discussing those stats. We're going to be talking about mid-price midfielders. I think there's a little bit of a debate between who to go for. There's the Leicester boys, there's Grealish. So yeah, we'll be talking mid-price midfielders. We're going to be discussing Chelsea's new manager. Zophar has been doing some reading on him, and we'll see what he has to say about him, what to expect in terms of Chelsea, etc. We're going to be looking at Everton, who have a nice run of fixtures right now, and whether there are any options there. We're going to be talking about strikers, especially because there's a few looking to sell Bamford. So we'll be addressing that. After that, we have your hot fixtures, your captaincies, our teams, and the Q&A. Bakar, the floor is yours.
All right. So, as always, I have three stats for our viewers and listeners. The first one I have this week is regarding Leeds and Bamford. So I noticed a drop in their numbers, which kind of compelled me to run a couple of comparisons on Leeds and Bamford. So the first comparison I do on Leeds is from game week 1 to 15, where I run a comparison on their numbers from game week 1 to 15, and I compare them to their numbers from game week 16 to 20. So for shots inside the box per game, Leeds were averaging 10.7 in game week 1 to 15, which was first in the league during that spell, compared to 7.5 shots in the game from game week 16 to 20, which was 11th in the league during that spell. So basically, for shots inside the box per game, they dropped from first to 11th. Similarly, for big chances per game, they dropped from 7th to 18th. They were initially averaging 7th for big chances per game in game week 1 to 15, but from game week 16 to 20, that number actually more than half to 0.75. For average XG per game, Leeds were second, having an average XG of 1.7 in game week 1 to 15. But then they dropped from second in the league to 15th for average XG. And from game week 16 to 20, they had an average XG per game of just zero 0.8. So they halved their average XG as well. Similar trends can be seen for Bamford, and I run a very similar comparison for Bamford, and I compare him to some of the other forwards in the game. So for shots inside the box per game, he was averaging 3.27 from game week 1 to 15, which slumped to 2.25 from game week 16 to 20. He was first for shots inside the box from game week 1 to 15, and that ranking dropped to fifth from game week 16 to 20. For big chances per game, similarly, a similar trend was followed as I mentioned about Leeds earlier. Bamford more than halved his big chances per game from 1.1 to 0.5, so he dropped from third amongst forwards to eighth amongst forwards. For average XG per game, he dropped from 0.7 to 0.2. He had an average XG which was actually second best amongst forwards from game week 1 to 15, but that dropped to 13th from game week 16 to 20. So as you can see, the trends are similar, and despite the fact that Leeds won this week and very recently they scored 5 against West Brom, I noticed that their numbers have been declining. This could be as a result of exhaustion or because of teams adapting to their play style. It's actually hard to pinpoint what's going on, but there's definitely something wrong with Leeds attack at the moment. It isn't as free flowing as it was earlier in the season. Do you guys have anything to add on this?
Yeah, and also one thing that you see when it comes to something like this is fixtures dictate form, which isn't the case here because in the last five, where you notice that dip in numbers for Leeds, they face Burnley, they face West Brom, they face Spurs, they face Brighton, and they face Newcastle. So these aren't exactly particularly tough fixtures, where you'd see, okay, no, it's because of the fixtures that this dip in form happened. So yeah, it does look a little dicey for Leeds at the moment, and I don't blame a lot of managers looking to get off Bamford at the moment. It shouldn't be a priority transfer because, like you mentioned, he's still got decent numbers and he's not exactly particularly expensive, and he's still fifth for shots in the box per game. I was actually just looking at the XG numbers for the last four matches, and he's not even in the top 30 in the league. So that's quite drastic. And this is all attackers, so it's midfielders as well as forwards. So yeah, I don't blame managers if they're looking to get rid of Bamford, especially because I think there are a few exciting options emerging.
I agree with you. And but only caveat is you have to remember he's on penalties. So that's something you just didn't mention, but it is worrying. And I think the last two games in particular, I think he's had one shot in total. And the thing, as we know with Bamford, right, he's not a clinical shooter. He needs the volume. If he's not getting the volume, we won't expect him to be like putting away a lot of chances. So it's something worth considering. Definitely, and the early substitution is something that rang alarm bells in my head as well. Because you see,
Yeah.
earlier on in the season, that wasn't happening. He was one of the few guys that was playing 90 minutes week in week out. So Bielsa maybe also seeing something over there. Maybe he's carrying an injury, or what it is, we don't know. But Bamford is certainly on the chopping block for me.
Yeah, he doesn't even look very sharp on the eye test either at the moment.
That's what
I
it
feel
is.
like when it comes to most players, if somebody doesn't have three city at the moment, I think that's where they're going to be spending their transfers. And if somebody's getting already has three city in play, then I think people are looking to shift the striker spot
You know
at the moment.
what caught my eye was the fact that prior to the goal, they'd conceded to Newcastle, and they were actually level. So it's not even that he was being rested or something. They were level, and Leeds had to find a goal. So for Bielsa to take Bamford off was quite a surprise. I wasn't expecting that to happen, particularly once Newcastle scored.
Fair, fair. Good point. Good point.
All right,
I don't
so
think his position is under threat, though. I don't think they have anybody else. I don't think Rodrigo is an out and out striker in terms of what he's offering with the team. So I don't think his position is quite under threat, but yeah, the numbers are
What
different.
about his upcoming fixtures? What are they like?
I have the fixture ticker
they're
in front of.
mixed. They're mixed.
The mixed, right?
They've
That's what I
got
remember.
Leicester away, Everton at home, Crystal Palace at home, Arsenal away.
I think in
The
three of
mix.
those four teams, they didn't score in the reverse fixture, right? I think I remember Bamford didn't score against Leicester, didn't score against Arsenal, didn't score against Everton. I think
Yeah.
Palace, he had that one goal which he scored. So
Yeah.
whatever you can read from that.
Also, there's just another additional piece of information. I mean, their last home game was on an absolutely atrocious pitch, but now they do have a new pitch laid out at Ellen Road. So maybe that will help them play some free flowing football because the last pitch wasn't really good and helped Leeds.
You can move
All
on,
right.
Bakar.
So moving on, the next comparison I have for you is between the City midfielders. I ran a comparison between them from game week 13 to 20 to assess the level which they're playing at. So the four City mids I compare are Gundogan, Foden, Bernardo, and Sterling. Um, so for minutes per chance created, Gundogan is 46, Foden is 26, Bernardo is 57, Sterling is 51. So clearly for creativity, you can see that Foden is outstatting the other three City midfielders. For minutes per shots inside the box, Gundogan is 38, Foden is 32, Bernardo is 81, and Sterling is 41. So what surprises me here is that Gundogan actually has a better minutes per shot inside the box ratio compared to even Sterling over the past seven matches, which is not something normally you associate with them, with him in particular. Um, for minutes per big chance, Gundogan is 92, Foden is 208, Bernardo is 285, Sterling is 124. Another thing to notice while I make this comparison is that Sterling actually took a penalty, which has kind of inflated his minutes per big chance stats. So if you don't take that into account, then Gundogan's stats would even be better. For minutes per expected involvement, Gundogan is 149, Foden is 179, Bernardo is 278, and Sterling is 122. So Sterling has the best minutes per expected involvement. Um, So yeah, so what I read from this is that Gundogan is more or less matching Sterling over recent times, which is absolutely incredible given that he's half the price. I think both Gundogan and Sterling have the edge over Foden and Bernardo in terms of sheer underlying numbers,
But why
particularly
do you
for
say that?
goal
I
threat,
mean, underlying numbers for Foden are better than Gundogan
for
based on the number,
creativity, for
and for
creativity.
and for shots in the box. Foden's 32 minutes per shot
Yeah,
in the box.
but like I think minutes per big chance is the big one for me because like Gundogan is averaging twice as many big chances as Foden, which is something which I like, and the fact that I don't really trust Foden personally because he seems like someone who can get dropped after one bad game. I'm sure he'll play the game at the weekend against Sheffield United because he got taken off earlier, but I won't be surprised if he got benched randomly here and there. I think Gundogan is fairly secure for a while.
And
Um,
pens.
and Pence, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the big thing in the absence of De Bruyne and Aguero. Having said all of this, I still think in isolation Sterling is the best option in terms of sheer explosiveness because I still think he carries the greatest amount of goal threat of all Man City players. Even in the game against West Brom, he accumulated the highest number of shots inside the box, and as I mentioned earlier, has the best minutes per expected involvement. But like Sterling seems like the most explosive option, but um, like I won't be too surprised if Gundogan came close to matching him, given his numbers as well.
And in terms of game time, I think Gundogan is probably safer because what those substitutions said to me, right? He initially took off Bernardo for
No, he took off Foden and Gundogan
Foden,
first.
Gundogan. He took off Bernardo right after that, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of showed to me these are the three players he wanted to wrap in cotton wool. He left Sterling on for 90 minutes, maybe because he feels he's fit enough. I don't know. That could be the case. But I think these are the three players who he looks as essential for his next game.
Correct. Also, the numbers for Sterling in terms of his goal threat absolutely make sense again because we discussed this a few pods ago. In terms of whichever attacker is playing on the side of Cancelo, I've noticed that Sterling is more wider than normal when he's playing on that right hand side. So that thing makes sense in terms of the numbers. But let's just uh, everything apart, numbers apart, just looking and watching at Gundogan play, that performance against West Brom was something else. Not just his two goals, like every touch he took, every pass he made, his pressing, his energy, his spatial awareness. I thought that's one of the best performance. I know it was West Brom, but that was one of the best performances I've seen by a midfielder in a while. He was just so good, and I mean, I don't think it's wrong to say that he's actually a better finisher than De Bruyne, considering what
Without
we've
a
seen
doubt.
from considering
Absolutely.
what we've seen from Kevin this season. All his goals, if you look at all the Gundogan goals that I remember, a lot of them are absolute beauties. Like he's not taking them from very close, except for the couple that Sterling assisted at the beginning of his run. But the last 3 or 4 goals, beautiful goals. He's in the form of his life right now. Just a word to the guys that trusted Foden, though. I mean, I think when it comes to Foden and Gundogan, uh, the only problem that there exists with Foden is that he's not as nailed as Gundogan. But I think on another day, Foden braces and Gundogan doesn't. So don't just look at the result. I mean, the numbers dictate that they're pretty close in terms of creativity and goal threat together. So if you punted on Foden, I'd say hold some patience, especially because he was rested. I mean, he was subbed off early in the previous game. That's all I wanted to add.
Agreed.
His finishing is absolutely exquisite. You notice that he often doesn't hits his shots with a lot of power. They're just timed and they're placed to absolute perfection. I think he reads the minds of the keepers and he sort of goes the other way. It's absolutely
It's
beautiful to
ice
watch.
cold. Right opposite of Kevin, right? Kevin, you can just tell every time he's winding up to just leather the ball in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also worth taking in, for people, and this might come into play, I think 4 or 5 game weeks later. City have had a good run of fixtures, so they do get a lot more chances than expected. The defenses that they've faced in the past few weeks, they've faced Newcastle at home, they've faced Brighton at home, they've faced Crystal Palace at home, they've faced Villa at home, and they've faced West Brom away. So except for Villa, I think most of these are obliging defenses as well. So, and fixtures do breed form. They create the shout out to Luke Disciple because he pointed this out on Twitter. And the fixtures do toughen for City in 2 or 3 game weeks time. He offers fabulous value at the moment for just something you should do in terms of tempering your expectations with Gundogan in the future.
Fair. So The last ad I have for you is regarding the Brighton defense at home. Um, a lot of people this week are going to be considering Son and Kane for captaincy. So this stat is particularly relevant to them. I noticed that Brighton at home have been posting stellar defensive numbers all season. Um, their expected tally of goals conceded at home of 8.9 is actually some way off their actual tally of goals conceded, which is 15. And this variance of 6.1 between expected and actual output is actually, the second worst for underperformance at home in the league. So I looked more into detail to find the reasoning behind their underperformance at home because their numbers have been great. And I think that a large part of this can actually be attributed to Matt Ryan, who has a variance of actually -4 um, between expected and actual goals conceded at home, which is among the top three worst keepers in the league in terms of underperformance. However, with Sanchez in goal now, I think Brighton are looking more short at the back, which will make it tough for Spurs, in my opinion. I noticed that Spurs are not even in the top 10 for XG away from home. Personally, I think they will have a tough time coming up against Brighton, who are second only to Man City for XG conceded, XG non-penalty conceded, and big chances conceded at home in the league. Um, Knowing Son and Kane's pedigree, they could very well notch here, particularly Son given his away statistics. But I won't recommend them for captaincy this week, as I personally feel that based on Brighton's home defensive stats, their ceiling looks a bit limited.
Interesting. But don't you think
Just like to.
Brighton? Sorry, go ahead.
No, Zoph, go on.
I was just saying Brighton. I don't know. I think a lot we are podding right now before the Spurs Liverpool game, right? And I think a lot depends on momentum. If Spurs win today, I think they can carry that momentum into that Brighton fixture.
So with me, Brighton. So first of all their defenders, they have that one brain fart in them where there's always this one moment where they switch off, and which is why they concede. Did you see the highlights for the Brighton Fulham game? By the way, Brighton completely dominated Fulham and should have won by 2 or 3 goals in that match. I don't know how they didn't win, but the thing that comes to me when I look at Brighton, and especially when Brighton play against big teams, is that because they like to impose themselves in the game. I mentioned this quite a few times before. They tend to open gaps at the back, and I feel like their playstyle plays into Spurs' hands in terms of how Spurs like to set up, sit deep, soak up the pressure, and then counter. And Brighton are exactly the kind of team that can play into Spurs' hands, which is why I don't think it's a very bad shout for captaincy. I was quite enamored by this, and I looked into the number of goals they've conceded against good attacks. Now, in this season, they've conceded 3 goals to Chelsea. They've conceded 1 goal only to Spurs. They've conceded 3 to United, 4 to Everton, 1 to Liverpool, 3 to Leicester, and 1 to City. So on an average, they concede 2.2 goals against decent opposition, which isn't a very bad shout. So I feel like if a good team shows up against them, there could be goals in the game in terms of how much they concede.
I'm sort of with you on that.
Yeah, I think good teams can take advantage of them, but they're in good form at the moment. 2 clean sheets back to back, and they didn't give Fulham too much. I mean, the XG numbers for that game were 2 to 0.5 or something of that sort. Should have taken that game.
You pointed out some good numbers for Brighton against top attacks, but how many of these games were actually at home?
Does that make much of a
Liverpool.
difference, home and away,
I think so,
especially
yeah,
now?
because their away stats aren't as good at home. They're actually very good. I do give a lot of weightage to these stats, home and away. I think they matter.
I'll look into it and I'll tweet about it because I haven't looked at the home and away stats at the moment. It's just how I see Brighton and what comes to my mind when I see them playing a game. That's all. I don't think Son's a bad shot for captaincy this week, very honestly.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Knowing his pedigree, he can very well score. I mean, it won't be a big surprise.
Yeah, and he's due, right? I mean, he's top for big chances missed in the last 4 in the league. I think 6 big chances missed. So he's done his bit when it comes to evening up his XG score for the season, I think.
For sure. Right. So before we
Uh,
move,
Zoff?
go ahead.
Yeah. One last thing on this is I was just looking at the away stats for Brighton. They're actually 12th for XG conceded away from home. and second best at home. So just another point I'd like to make there.
Interesting, but just another counter argument I'd like to make for that. I think at home they might set up more offensively. Like, I mean, if they were with a crowd, at least that's what they would do, right? Naturally, teams at home tend to attack more. But I don't know, without crowds, they might set up into a similar way. Because, like you said, the Spurs game, which is the reverse fixture, was decided by that Kane penalty, which was a BS one, right? Where Kane literally jumped over Lallana to
Yeah,
win
yeah,
the
yeah.
penalty.
Remember
So,
that game?
yeah, Lamptey scored. I remember that quite well. So yeah, you never know. But I still think I think a lot depends on how the game goes today. How well they
Sure.
do against Liverpool, right? So before we move on to the next section, guys, as you know, we have recently started a Patreon page at patreon.com/the FPL Wire. Our work continues to be free, and this is just if you want to support us. We wanted to give a shout out to our newest patrons, Robert Kavanagh in the Jimmy tier and Rohit Mateti in the Oma tier. Thank you guys for your support.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. We appreciate the support.
Thank you for the support.
Right, now let's move on to the mid-price mids.
We have a table here, Zoph, I think.
Yep, let's just walk through the table. Now we have restricted this to midfielders at 8.5 and under. This is sorted by XGI, expected goal involvement for the last 4 matches.
Do we want to look at the 5.5 bracket, or do we want to look at the 7 million bracket? Because I personally think there are a few looking at, like, I think there are 4 or 5 midfielders in conversation that people are looking at right now, and that's Maddison, that's Barnes, that's Grealish, there's Zaha, and there's James Rodriguez. I think people are assessing. Do you want to touch upon the budget ones as well?
I mean, they come under this, right? They're included in this 8.5 and under. So I'm looking at purely in terms of numbers over here, if they're not in terms of price. So Saka comes out on top with 2.84 XGI, Harvey Barnes 2.41, Trezeguet 2.27, but this is from his earlier matches. This is last 4 matches, not game weeks. Pereira 2.21, Gundogan 2.18. He's only City mid up there. Trossard 2.03, Grealish, Soucek, and Zaha, rounding it off. So, like you said, a few of those mids over there. You have your Pereira there, who's like a 5.5 mid. Trossard, your Soucek, Gundogan. So they're all within the same category in terms of output.
Yeah. If you had to go for somebody in the 6.5 to 7.5 bracket, which a lot of people are looking for right now, and let's assume that everybody's on 3 City at the moment. We touched upon City, so let's not look at them. Which one would you go for out of the names that I mentioned earlier?
I think for me it would be Harvey Barnes. I saw the highlights of that Leicester Everton game, and Barnes looked good. I think much more exciting to watch than Maddison. Many more avenues to points, and very unlucky not to come away with a bigger score.
Bakar?
Does Grealish?
I'm surprised by the way, Zoff. I was totally expecting you to say Grealish. I thought
Grealish
would
7.7. You said 7.5.
In that bracket, if Grealish was a part of the conversation.
Oh, then blindly Grealish. Grealish looked electric against Burnley in that new role. He almost scored a goal which was similar to Son's against Burnley. So his numbers were out insane. I think yesterday he had 5 chances created, 3 shots on target. Ridiculous.
Big chance as well.
Big chance as well. Yep.
Bakar?
Yeah, same. It would be no brainer for me. I really like Grealish and Watkins. I think they're offering possibly the best value in the game right now. So that would be no brainer for me.
Even if you're wild carding in, let's say, 3 or 4 game weeks, because it's the fixture play, right? Because there's Newcastle, there's Leeds and Fulham for Leicester up in the next 2. Wouldn't that tempt you for a short-term play before you move to Grealish, or would you jump onto Grealish straight up?
I would jump to Grealish straight away because I think Villa are a team in form, and Leicester, I know that that Barnes looked threatening yesterday, but I don't really think that they have as many goals in them without Vardy in the team, which is why I won't personally go towards one of their attackers. I'm sure they'll score a couple of goals against Leeds, but it's hard to predict because the goals will be shared. I don't really think there's an outright goal scorer over there, so I'd rather go towards Grealish, who's the main man in the Villa side.
The stat that turned my head was Leeds conceded 22 shots. 22 shots to Newcastle. Who concedes 22 shots to Newcastle? I was absolutely blown away by that stat. I feel like they're on a downward slump. I mean, they were open and they were like, never mind, I don't want to say anything. I shouldn't.
That's a good one. Yeah. Newcastle had like almost twice the XG of Leeds in that game, which was like absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
Leeds were actually lucky to win that one.
I've just looked at some numbers in terms of, because I'm kind of making the decision. I'm in the market for a 7 million-ish midfielder at the moment, and just in terms of attack fixtures, might, on paper Aston Villa don't really have fixtures as good as Leicester in the next four. I mean, they've got Southampton away, West Ham at home, Arsenal at home, and Brighton away. But Grealish has done really well against this opposition previously. In Southampton, against Southampton in the reverse fixture, he had 1 goal and 2 assists. Villa scored five, and Southampton, remember, they're without their starting fullbacks at the moment, and they're sixth for shots in the box conceded in the last four as well. So they're not in exactly very good defensive form at the moment. After that, Grealish scored a goal against West Ham in the reverse fixture as well. He got an assist versus Arsenal in the reverse fixture, had no returns versus Brighton. So he has done well in the reverse fixtures, and all of them were in the first 10 game weeks when Barkley was fit, where he's playing in the left wing role, which he is playing now that Barkley's back. So just something I thought I'd point out. Everton, we won't talk about Everton right now because they know James. Anyone tempted? Newcastle at home and Leeds away. I don't think you get a better pair of fixtures. But if I'm going for somebody from Everton, it has to be DCL. Anybody tempted by going back to James?
No, I think there are too many better picks in midfield, and I feel
Yeah.
DCL is more of a talisman from that side.
Exactly. Besides, I'm not exactly sure about Hammers straight away. I'd like to see a bit more before I go there. More on Grealish, by the way, that Villa actually accumulated five big chances yesterday against Burnley. I mean, to do that at Turf Moor is actually a big achievement, because Burnley have actually at home they have a watertight defense. It's very hard to go there and post. Numbers like these, five big chances. That just tells me the Villa attack is on a different level this season. They're extremely underpriced.
Agree.
So for both of y'all, it would be either Grealish or the Leicester boys, and then you guys would have James and Wilfred Zaha. Zaha also has a good run of fixtures. He's got Newcastle and Leeds next. Again, next to same pair of fixtures that Everton have. Again, not tempted by Zaha.
No, because he plays for Palace, right, Bakar?
Yeah, I agree with that. Um, James actually might tempt me over the Leicester Meds. That's actually 50-50 for me. I'm not so sure I'd go Barnes over James actually, because Everton are facing Newcastle at home and then Leeds away. I can see plenty of goals there for Everton, honestly, and that I just expect Everton to score more goals than Leicester in the next two, which is why I'd probably go James over someone like a Madison or Barnes personally.
I was
I
looking at
just
the
think,
reverse fixture returns as well. Barnes scored against both his opponents in the reverse fixtures. He scored one against Leeds and he scored one against Fulham as well. And Leeds actually scored four. Sorry, Leicester scored four against Leeds in their previous game. So just
Yep, and
throwing in
we'll
some.
bring some stats out on Everton later. The Everton attack of late has not been firing. I know that they have players out, but we'll discuss that once we get there.
yeah, that's a good point. But now they have their players back, so I expect them to
Right.
be back on form.
Anything else you
Both of
guys?
y'all are Barnes over Madison at the moment.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm confused because I'm normally always a Harvey Barnes guy, and if you really try to envision the Leicester Leeds game in your head, you feel like Harvey Barnes is going to be the one taking advantage because Leeds defense suits people who are running in behind because there's so much space and everything. But Madison just has the quality, So I never actually ever consider Madison as a pick, but he does look a little more selfish. He is
He is.
taking
He's different this
positions
season.
better. He's not the Madison that was there previous seasons, and that's something that's debating because I've been looking at Jack versus Madison versus Barnes quite closely because I need a midfielder at the moment, and it's close. It's really close. I'm tempted to just play the fixtures because Fulham aren't in really good defensive form at the moment as well. I think they're in the bottom five for shots in the box conceded. So the pair of fixtures, I'm just looking to play the fixture. You boys would still go Grealish,
Grealish
Barnes,
is head and
Madison.
shoulders above everybody else.
I was actually reading a Madison interview where he said that he wanted to get more goals and assists this season. So I was considering him until last week as well when I actually looked into his stats and I noticed that he had accumulated just a single big chance and created just one big chance over the season, which was, I mean, those stats are absolutely abysmal. So that kind of turned my head, and I haven't looked back at him ever since,
Well,
personally.
also, what's happened? What's interesting is I feel like See, there's no Jamie Vardy right now at the moment, right? In the two games that Perez has played as striker, Perez isn't a Jamie Vardy where he's sitting on the last line of defense and looking to run behind. And he's not mimicking what Vardy does as a striker. And that's actually led to Madison being closer to goal than he is. Normally, I should actually just look at the heat maps. We have a close turnaround time, which is why I didn't get time to do that. But it's something worth muttering because if he's playing with Perez, Madison is a lot closer to the goal. So, uh, tough decision, I reckon.
I like how we're not even talking about Perez, even though he's OOP.
No, no. I mean, wouldn't be surprised if Iheanacho starts the next game,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think we've been trolled enough by Perez last season.
yeah. Perez is somebody you get in the last 6 game weeks or last 5 game weeks of the season because much like PV, he just likes that time of the season and he has a couple of hauls in that part of the season. Outside of that, no.
Anything else to add here? Should we move on?
We can move on.
Just these guys that are playing these teams, I mean, just worth noticing the defenses that are conceding a lot of shots in the box. West Brom as expected, Fulham as expected, Newcastle as expected. Burnley and Southampton have made their way into the teams conceding the most shots in the box in the last 4 matches as well. When it comes to just realigning how these defenses are performing at the moment.
But Fulham have
That's all.
Areola, right? Areola's been ridiculously good off late.
So
Yeah.
good, so good,
Yeah,
so good.
in terms of variance between expected and actual goals conceded, he's actually the best after Nick Pope this season. So he's been immense.
Right.
Nice.
Let's
nice.
move on now to Thomas Tuchel.
Is it Tuchel or Tuchel? What are we calling him?
I'm calling him Chelsea manager. Let's just keep it easy that way.
All in. Cool.
I'm not sure.
Cool.
All right. So this is just a summary we have about him. This is from friend of the pod, AK's hot topic on Fantasy Football Scout. So just quick notes on Tuchel. He likes this high press, similar I think to what Klopp used to do at Dortmund, high press and counter press. He likes positional play with two players fixing at a spot on the flanks. He's very dynamic in terms of his formation. He changes his formation up according to his opposition. He likes usually a 3-5 in possession. So he's an attacking manager in that sense. There's slight weakness in defensive transition. He will always play a defensive midfielder that will build up play from the back. That screams Jorginho to me. Maybe Kante, if he can play Kante like how Sari used to play him. Werner, Chilwell, and James prospects look really good for FPL. Pulisic is also a product of Tuchel, while it remains to be seen how he manages Havertz, Ziyech, and Cho. He likes to play passes in behind the defense, whether through the middle or from the flanks. That screams good potential for Werner to me. And in general, he likes speed, movement, intensity, and discipline. So if you guys want a more detailed reading of this, check out AK's hot topic on Scout.
Anything that you could pick up from the game last night?
It's very difficult really because he had literally one training session, right? Just on Tuesday evening to play with the players. And Wolves had come with a view to frustrate. They were very clear that they just did not want to concede. What I did like, I liked how close Havertz was playing to the goal. Yeah, I thought he got into some good dangerous position. Chilwell got into the box a few times. He had one very good shot which he blazed over, which made me think that Alonso could have some potential. Alonso could be revived because, there's one fullback you trust in the box, it's Marcos Alonso. So we could see him.
And Chilwell actually had a fairly poor game.
Exactly.
He didn't have a really good game.
In terms of the box, Chilwell's crossing is probably better than Alonso, but in terms of being in the box, Alonso is, I think, one of our most lethal guys. So that could have some play into it. And I think he's going to persist with this two up top. And I think it might benefit Werner as well, because when he used to play in Germany, he always used to play with another striker, right? Usually a big guy who can hold up the ball.
Credit to 3-5 who he gave me this stat. When Aubameyang was playing under Tuchel, he scored 56 goals in 63 games at Dortmund under him. And Werner is a similar mold of a striker in terms of pacey. Maybe not the same level of finisher before everybody jumps at me, but yeah, those numbers are pretty encouraging.
Right.
Just one thing I actually want to add in when it comes to something that I saw on Twitter was people drawing a lot of conclusions from this one game. From what I've read about Tuchel, I'd say that he's changes his formation pretty drastically. Not drastically, but one or two positions here and there, and he's going to take at least 3 or 4 games to figure out what his team is. So I don't think I can. You should read anything from game 1 or game 2 or game 3. Give it 3 or 4 games as a whole to then assess what Tuchel's Chelsea will look like.
Right, because you have to keep in mind the games are so close. So he doesn't even have a week or training. You play Wednesday, then game on Saturday, then game on Tuesday, game again on Saturday. So there's literally no training time whatsoever.
Agreed. Agreed.
But in general, he does tinker a lot, so you guys should be careful in terms of jumping into any assets. We don't know who is going to be nailed. He might tailor according to the opposition a lot. That's what he's been known for. So I think for a while, I would probably stay off Chelsea, see how we do over the next couple of fixtures. And it's always better being later, I think, to the party by a week than turning up and finding out there's no party at all.
Yeah,
Keep telling that to me because I made that mistake multiple times this season.
yeah, I agree with that. But what's annoying is that the Chelsea actually have a very good run of fixtures coming
Fixtures,
up.
I
Burnley
know.
home this week, so I mean it's kind of annoying that we actually have to wait before we jump in. But yeah, overall I agree with almost everything that you guys have said. I have noted some stats from the game, but I don't think it's too wise to read too much
It was a
into them
dull
from
game
one
in
game.
general. I fell asleep watching. I
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean,
confess.
yeah, but like having said that, that's actually it's Chelsea had the highest amount of possession in the league this week, which was something which caught my eye. Just a single shot inside the box conceded. So let's see if these numbers can be sustained over a long period of time.
Yep,
One
he's
thing that I find interesting, there could be a budget defensive option emerging from Chelsea. Rudiger
Rudiger.
is 4.5 million, loves a goal from a corner. So just something worth looking at if he holds his place in the starting. I feel bad for Zuma and Mount though. I mean, they've been two of Chelsea's best performers this season, and I mean, I'm not reading too much again into the first game. Hopefully, Mount gets his due. There's because just something in terms of the amount of criticism Mason Mount gets and has been getting this season because he's supposedly limited compared to his fancier colleagues, but he's just had a fabulous season and he's not looked limited. He's looked very creative. He's looked very energetic. He presses well, and some of his passes are really good as well. So I'm hoping he isn't unfairly sidelined. That's all.
Just another note. I think I read that he likes to work with big squads, and I think PSG's squad is probably one that you could compare with Chelsea's in terms of alternatives and size. And he chopped and changed according to the opposition. So, but this really, I think, a bit of a minefield, and he's very different to Lampard, right? Lampard seemed like very much like an idealist. This guy seems very structured, very technical, very instruction driven. Like he's more Sari than he is. I think Lampard, not as bad as Sari, I would say,
Hmm.
but
Fair.
It would take 3 to 4 games for us to actually figure out who his undroppables are.
right. And I think Timo will eventually be up there, right? Because you have to keep in mind part of the reason Lamps was sacked is he couldn't get the best out of the new recruits. So that has to be sort of a mandate given to him by the board, right?
Agree. Agree.
Perhaps.
Right.
All right.
Let's move on to Everton. So these are the
So
stats I was talking about. Sorry, Ella, I'll just go through this real quick. So in terms of big chances over the last four matches, Everton have created only two. Only Palace have created fewer. In terms of shots in the box, they are ranked fourth. They've had just one more shot than Everton. Sorry, than West Brom. And that they've had fewer shots in the box than Newcastle. And these guys have been back for a while, right? Like your Hammers and Dean, they've been back not this game, they've been back for a couple of matches now. So I don't know, maybe it's just a hangover from the defensive approach that Ancelotti has employed over the last few games, or maybe going forward he is favouring a defensive approach altogether. This made me a bit more cautious about jumping onto DCL right away.
I was just reading Tom's article on the Scout, and there's an excellent stat which stood out to me. Everton, when Dean, James, Richarlison, and DCL start together, they've scored 17 goals in 6 games. That's 2.83 goals per game when these four have started together. So those are encouraging numbers when it comes to Everton's perspective. If somebody was in the market for a striker, I think you have to play the fixtures. You don't get a better pair of fixtures than Newcastle and Leeds. And I'd be very, very surprised if Calvert-Lewin blanks in these fixtures. I think he's number one in terms of forwards to target for me at the moment.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. I just think Everton are a completely different side with all four of these in the same team. So, in my opinion, like I iterated with Antonio before the double, I don't think that historical numbers matter too much because I think with when these guys are playing, Everton are a completely different side. I won't read too much into the Leicester game personally because Leicester away from home they're third best for expected goals conceded in the league. So I didn't expect too much from Calvert-Lewin in this fixture anyways. So yeah, I think he's a good one to target for the fixtures that are coming up because I don't think too many people will be taking the punt anyways, which makes his upside even bigger.
Yeah.
Just
Um,
based on the numbers that we see on the slide, his last three fixtures were West Ham, Wolves, and Leicester. Not really good defense, not really bad defenses on paper. So just something worth
That's a
pointing
good
out as
point.
well.
Yeah, they played good defenses of late.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
Dean is
James,
interesting. He played a winger last
Yeah,
game. I think if
actually interested more in
somebody's
him than DCL. His heat map was off the charts. He's practically playing on the like just outside the box.
yeah,
uh, go on, Bakar.
and he accumulated the most number of chances created yesterday as well, Dinier, and Rodriguez looks back to his best as well. In the cup game, I noticed that he had 8 chances created. I know the opposition was of an inferior level, but still, it's
He was man of the
interesting to
match.
know. It's interesting to note that he had 8 chances created, 2 big chances created, including 2 assists. So, I mean, that just tells me that Everton are, they're an explosion waiting to happen sometime soon.
What a goal as well. Who knew James had a right-footed goal like that in his locker?
His first time he scored from outside of the box with his right foot.
Yeah, surprising. No one would have expected that. I was just talking to a couple of Everton fans as well, and what they told me, which strikes out, is that Godfrey's been really good in that position in which Dean generally plays. So if Ancelotti continues with this formation, great punt, absolutely top-notch punt for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Because what also happens is if Ancelotti is playing with his four centre backs in defense, they have looked better defensively as well. So then you get the best of both worlds with Dean. He's averaging an assist every 2 games this season, and now he's out of position as well. So it's just something worth considering.
Doucouré didn't play yesterday, right? I remember reading somewhere that they missed Doucouré a lot in midfield. Something to make note, just to take note of.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I
it,
also wonder, Allen's been out for a long time. I have
See,
no
that's
clue
what I
when
think. The
he's come.
midfield is at least what worries me a little bit. Like the likes of Doucouré and Allen missing. That's what worries me a little bit.
But don't forget that they conceded 22 shots to Newcastle. 22 shots to Newcastle. That's what leads to.
Correct. It's a fixture play. It's
It's a
absolutely
fixture
a
play.
fixture play. And the fact that you have so many forwards who aren't firing, I think is definitely a good place to go.
Exactly. He's definitely coming in my
Right.
team.
So
He was the only
Yeah,
good thing that
I
happened to my team this season at the start of the season, and I'm going back.
let's move on to forwards. In fact, since we are talking about DCL, let's look at forward numbers for the last 4 matches. Firmino is on top. He scored 0 goals, 13
Top for
shots in the
attendance in
box.
the. Wow.
And number 2, surprisingly, is McBurney. So Firmino and McBurney. That shows you where your stats you can take your stats from. And then you have Giroud, who scored a couple. Watkins actually was unlucky not to score against Burnley. He had a good one-on-one chance. I think he's come back well. He's got 2 goals in the last 2, I think. Antonio, his numbers are great. Bamford's numbers aren't too bad, but I think those are primarily from the West Brom game, right? The West Brom game comes under this sample size. And
And his shots didn't have a high XG either. Just worth pointing out because his XG numbers were pretty poor.
only 3 shots on target in the last 4 matches. Then you have Kane and Lacazette.
Lacazette is worth mentioning because he actually tops the table for everybody in the league for non-pen XG in the last 4 game weeks. So that's
yeah
just
over the
something worth
last
looking.
6 games actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually incredible. His numbers are great, and I don't think too many people are looking at him.
At
Uh,
the moment, yeah.
I guess a large part of that is because the fact that he blanked in game week 18
When
was
we
it
all had it.
when
Yes.
everyone free hitted him in, and he actually blanked. So yeah, I think he's a great option personally, but I don't think I'd look at Arsenal assets in the coming weeks. I don't really like their fixtures. I think they're hard.
Right.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the strikers, I think if you're looking at buying a striker, there are 4 strikers in play at the moment: Antonio, Watkins, DCL, and Kane. I think this is the ecosystem of strikers that one should look at the moment. Anybody else you'd consider?
Let's do a quick top 3. I think we have had a lot of questions about it. I think, Bakar, you go first. Your top 3 strikers in order of preference.
Um, I would probably go with Calvert-Lewin, Antonio, Watkins.
LR?
Calvert-Lewin first, and then I'd say pick one of Antonio Watkins. I have them equally pegged in the team as a striker. If people have a double Villa defense, then I'd say rather go for Grealish. So Antonio would switch to number 2, and Kane for me at number 3. I think there's a lot of budget midfielders in play at the moment. Invest your money in Kane; he's reliable.
Right. So yeah, for me, I think Antonio is top for all of us from the sounds of it, pretty much. Or did you guys go DCL?
Both of us went DCL
Was
first.
this,
Yeah.
for me, it would be Antonio. I still think because I think it's a form is a big thing, right? West Ham in general are a team in form, and Antonio, how he didn't come away with a bag full of goals in that Palace game, I really don't know. He
In
just
that Palace game, he actually looked really sharp. He looked sharp. I thought he looked good in that Palace game.
right. So and he's on penalties too, right? Most likely, I don't think Noble starts anymore. So Antonio's on penalties as well. So he would actually be right on the top for me. Number 2, I would go with Kane. I like Spurs next 3 fixtures. I think Brighton is a good game. Chelsea, you never know what that game under Tuchel is going to be like. Mourinho, I think, will fancy it. Kane has a good record against us. And that West Brom game, I had a look at the fixtures that week. I think he's a standout captain pick for that West Brom game as well. Number 3 is probably where it's close. I would say it's between DCL and Watkins for me. I just like DCL because Watkins, I think, he's not the talisman of that team. I think last 2 games he scored a couple, and I don't think he's very bonus point friendly either, right? I think Bakar can probably shed more light on this. Last 2
Problem.
games,
Yeah, the problem with his bonus points is that every single game he's missing big chances, which is why he doesn't get the bonus. If he doesn't miss big chances, I'm sure he'd get more bonus points. But I don't personally mind him missing big chances as long as he's getting.
he's getting them, but he also has to compete with Grealish for the bonus, right? Because Grealish has such good
Yeah.
numbers. Grealish racks up the bonus. The defense racks up the bonus.
Yeah, yeah.
Things
Exactly.
like that. So that's why I would say DCL just over him.
Is there a double game we expected for Villa in the next 4 weeks? No, right?
Not for Villa, but I think the only one we know that there might be a double game week in 24 for Man City and either
City.
Everton or Southampton. We don't know for sure yet. And we don't even know whether City will have a double game week. But this is what Ben Crellin is thinking. We should know more in the next few days.
Also, for all the permutations and combinations, if you are for the blanks and doubles, if you aren't already following Ben Crellin, just change that immediately. He's the guy you should be having on notifications if you want to play the fixtures. So yeah,
Anything else to add here in terms of forwards?
nope.
Right. Let's just
We're
move
done.
on now quickly. Now we will be looking at both fixtures for game week 21 and 22, as it's unlikely we will be podding again before game week 22 on Monday. So if anything does come up, we will try to get a short stream for you guys on Monday, but probably not as things stand. So let's just have a quick look at game week 21. The first one is Everton Newcastle. Everton win.
Yeah, Everton win. I'm actually looking at if I get DCL in, I think he's a really good captaincy shot for the week as well, because Newcastle haven't looked convincing at all in defense, and with DCL he's got that talismanic nature, so you know that if Everton are scoring goals, DCL is going to be involved. So I think it's a good captaincy shot for the week as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I completely agree with that. I think Calvert-Lewin has every chance of going big against Newcastle. Newcastle, I was just reading, are actually second worst for XG conceded away from home. So I mean, everything looks to be in Everton's favor. I think this is the week where they bounce back on everyone's radar.
Yeah, it's a good week to roll the dice, isn't it? I mean, there's no standout captaincy option. I mean, the Gundogan owners are going to be looking at maybe captaining him against Sheffield United at home. Cancelo is an option again if
Yeah.
you fancy that. There's DCL. Then the Leicester mids, if somebody's feeling punty, both Barnes and Madison are decent captaincy options, because anybody against Leeds is good for the armband. And then there is the Spurs game where they play Brighton away, which we discussed earlier. So I don't think there's a clear-cut standout captaincy option.
I'm not personally averse to the option of captaining Salah either. I mean, depending on how Liverpool look today, I think he could be a decent shout as well next week.
It depends if West Ham are above them on the table at the time, right? Depending on how today's goes. Can you imagine midway through the season, West Ham above the table when they play Liverpool?
Moisey for the win.
Should bring him back.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Everton Newcastle. For some reason I'm a bit not as optimistic on Everton's attacking prospects for you guys. I think they'll win, but I see it maybe like a 1 or 2 nil I don't know. I'm not getting the vibes of Everton scoring a lot personally.
Fair. I think they'll score 3 in the game. I think Newcastle are there for the taking.
Right. Next fixtures, Man City versus Sheffield United. Now, I think this is Bruno blanked last week against Sheffield. He blanked in the reverse fixture, and I remember he blanked in the restart as well, right? So I think Sheffield United have turned out to be Bruno's kryptonite. And in general, I can't remember any team scoring that many goals against them. But I think there are two things over here. City and right now getting back to their old levels in terms of their attack. The attack is firing, and I think there will be an element of tiredness also, right? They played you guys on Wednesday. This game is on Saturday, so I think there will be some fatigue factor. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Easy win for Manchester City. But I don't think they'll score as many as they scored against West Brom. I think
3-0 for me.
yeah, 3-0 is probably a fair scoreline.
Yeah, 2-0 or 3-0 is what I'm thinking. And let's talk about captaincy here. Do you guys think, let's talk about Gundogan, Foden, Sterling. What do you guys think in terms of captaincy shots?
I think any of the three of them are a good captaincy option.
What about
Even
versus Cancelo? Yeah, let's talk about, let's say, an attacker. Let's talk about Gundogan versus Cancelo. What do you guys think?
I still prefer Gundogan as a captaincy option for me because I think he has a greater potential of a more explosive haul. I'm in the market always for a goal, 2 goals. You can argue that actually a City player starts with a return as well because the chances of him getting a clean sheet are very, very high. So he needs to get just one goal or assist to hit a double-digit return. But I just feel more confident about captaining a Gundogan or even a Foden or even a Sterling.
I agree. Bakar?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Personally, I noticed that Sheffield United's defensive numbers have improved, so I don't think that City are gonna completely annihilate them like they did with West Brom. I think it's gonna be like 3-0. Um, I would personally prefer Gundogan, but I am not exactly averse to the idea of captaining Cancelo either because I think he does have that ceiling.
Yeah.
It won't take much for him to assist. He's practically playing in midfield. His numbers are good, so it's something that I'll consider more closer to the deadline. But I think I'll be captaining one of either Gundogan or Cancelo this week. If I own Sterling, he would definitely have been my captain. I think he's the standout this week.
Don't think necessarily Sterling is that much better than Gundo. Maybe I think there's two things: the price tag, and B, the past. We've seen Gundo not post these numbers in the past. I think we must wake up to what Gundogan is now. He's essentially if you put him a David Silva who plays every week. He's essentially a 9.5, 10 million midfielder. So we need to calibrate our thinking a little bit on that. So my problem with captaining Cancelo is a freak incident could always happen, right? Maybe Sheffield get one corner, they score from that. I would still say City are not that good at defending set pieces. You could have a freak own goal. There are a lot of things that could go wrong with captaining a defender, right? I mean, Cancelo's goal also, the last game, it was a bit fortunate. The West Brom defense had stopped playing completely. The goalkeeper didn't even attempt. He probably wouldn't have saved it anyway, but he didn't even go for it. So we shouldn't be like that. He has good numbers, it's still process oriented thinking. I agree, but maybe there's a bit of result oriented thinking in there as well.
Yeah, also, I mean, if Pep has to rest Cancelo in a game, I think this is the game he gets his rest.
No, I think he has to unlock the Sheffield. He knows Sheffield United are good defense, right now.
But 3 games after that, Zoff, Burnley away, Liverpool away, and Spurs at home. Much tougher fixtures on paper. So if and the replacement isn't somebody who's a nobody, right? You got Kyle Walker playing in that position instead of him. So that's the only thing. It's just a 5% worry because the fixtures after that, the 3 fixtures are tougher. So I'm not worried about the midfielders because they got substituted in the 50th minute, but I'm a little bit worried about Cancelo.
I would be more if KDB was playing, but I think now he's pretty much playing the quarterback role. The KDB playing the ball. So I'm pretty confident Cancelo will start. He maybe get hooked early. That's more of a concern for me in terms of minutes being managed.
Do you see the centre backs getting rotated at all, boys?
Not against these guys, not against the Sheffield United guys, especially because you need your physical guys who play.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they'll get rested.
Especially since they won, because there's a bit of momentum also, right? Sheffield, I think Pep will have that in mind that Sheffield United just won. So there's a bit of momentum also on their side. Right, let's just quickly now, before we move on to the next, we talk about Arsenal Man United. How do we see this game going? Bruno, a captaincy shout?
Not for me. And for me, I think there are better captaincy options out there. And Arsenal haven't looked poor in defense, so not for me.
I I would probably not go there as well, but I think Bruno will return in this game personally. Is the way numbers are always decent. I would expect a reaction from United. I think United are going to beat Arsenal this week. I'd expect a win 2-1 probably.
I actually expect United to win as well. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think Rashford is going to get on the score sheet.
Yeah, this is a more Rashford game than a Bruno game. I agree with that assessment.
That Chelsea, Burnley, we'll just touch upon. I think we'll probably. I don't expect this to be too high scoring. If Wolves could show up like in a smaller bus, Burnley are going to bring the double decker. So I don't think there are too many goals in this one. Probably would look there for captaincy. West Ham, Liverpool again. Salah, we
We
can't.
need to
really-
discuss Leicester Leeds, because I think a lot of people are
Let's
looking
touch.
at the.
Let's do that. Why
Leicester.
not? What do you think? Leicester Leeds.
I see 3 goals for Leicester.
I
think
agree.
they've been playing really good football. I can see a double-digit haul for one of the 2 midfielders that everybody's talking about at the moment. So yeah,
Bakar?
I'd probably go with a 2-1 Leicester win.
Yep. 2-1, 3-1, something like that. Because I think Leicester are probably the worst team for Leeds to play, right? They play right into their hands.
yep. I think that they are the kind of team who can take advantage of a
I
defense.
shudder to think what Vardy would have done had he been fit.
A standout captaincy option this week, I think,
Absolutely.
if he was fit.
Absolutely.
Only one thing, I think NDD got injured in the last game, so I don't know how that affects the team. Just something worth noting.
Who usually
Big
slots
loss
in?
to the team.
Who slots in that position usually?
Mendy.
Right.
In these things. Yeah.
So West Ham, Liverpool. Will Liverpool score?
I think a close fought victory, 2-1 to Liverpool this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. 2-1 for me as well.
I,
I do think West Ham will score. The West Ham's attacking numbers ever since Antonio's comeback have been great. I know they've played some obliging defenses, but they look a far greater threat with Antonio in the team. They're actually second for XG over the past 3 games. Just one thing worth mentioning. And Liverpool away from home, their defensive form isn't as great. So I'd expect West Ham to notch. And I think Liverpool will probably bounce back. I'm expecting a couple of goals from them. Salah probably will do well in this one, I think.
hope so. Brighton, Spurs. Bakar, you first.
I'd go with a 1-1.
Standing by your stats.
Yeah.
Interesting prediction. Zoff?
I think 2-1 Spurs.
Yeah, I think I'd go with a similar prediction. I think 2-1 to Spurs. I do think Spurs will concede in this game. Just worth mentioning, Reguilon is injured for a fair amount of time as well, so you don't know how that's going to.
Has that been
affect Spurs.
confirmed? I think Mourinho said yesterday there were some injuries. He didn't name them. Has that been confirmed?
I don't know. I just read somewhere on Twitter that Reguilon has injured.
Yeah.
so-
I read the same.
Okay. Let's have a quick look at the next week. Next week, in fact, captaincy is a bit trickier. Game week 22. Let's have a look there. Right, we can skip Sheffield United, West Brom, Wolves, Arsenal, United, Southampton. Bruno
It's a good
captain?
fixture. I like this fixture for Bruno captaincy because we generally do score against Southampton and they aren't in very good defensive form at the moment. So I see us putting 2 or 3 goals past them. They're the kind of team we like playing against. So yeah, I like Bruno as a shout for this game.
And Southampton feel like they've slumped a little bit, right? Just from watching them against Arsenal, I think they're without, I think Bertrand will be back for the next game. But in general, they do look like they've slumped a little bit.
Yeah, what's happened is that their attacking numbers have completely collapsed as well over the past 7-8 game weeks. They're around the bottom for XG. I've done a more detailed piece on this in my review, and their numbers are absolutely shocking.
So I think Bruno's a decent shout. Burnley, Man City, I don't really feel comfortable captaining a City player here. I think it's maybe a 1-0, 2-0. What do you guys think?
Similar. They scored 3 or 4 in the reverse.
5. They scored 5, but that was
five
without
in the reverse.
Nick Pope.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I see a 2-0 victory for Burnley in this game as well.
For City.
For City.
For City, sorry. Always do this.
Welcome
Come
back,
back to
LR.
territory. Yeah.
I personally don't think it will be hard for City. I'd probably go with a 3-0. Could even be 4. I'd probably go with 3-0.
Fair.
Fulham,
What
less.
happened?
Sorry, go ahead.
What happened in that Villa game, man? I have no idea how Burnley pulled out 3 goals in such a short period of time.
I was
Aston
watching the
Villa.
game and I was actually tearing my hair out as a Watkins owner in the first half. Oh my goodness.
With a
How did they
one-on-one
not score
chance.
a 3 or 4 goals in that first half? I don't know. I think absolutely
Exactly.
dominated Villa.
Even Grealish could
Unlucky.
have had a couple of assists. Bertrand Traore missed a very good chance. There were a couple of others.
Target took a
Just
couple of shots at goal. I was very happy watching his attacking contribution as well. He's been a
yeah,
low-key
yeah, yeah.
hero in these dark times for me. He's performed pretty consistently. So,
Yep.
It
So,
was um, it was a tough watch. They just got robbed, honestly.
right. So Leeds, Everton. I think that this picture actually like more for DCL than the Newcastle game.
yeah. Exactly why, right? I mean, you wouldn't be surprised to see DCL getting 2 goals in these 2 games at the very least, given the opposition. So I just
Absolutely
feel
not.
like seems like a good bet.
Villa
Good
West
price.
Ham is a game I'm actually looking forward to watching. I think these are both two form teams this season who have really been punching above their weight.
Who do you think takes it?
I'm going to sit on the fence and go 1-1.
Bakar?
I think Villa will win this. Probably 2-1.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're a better team than West Ham at the moment, so I expect them to win as well.
Right. So Liverpool, Brighton. I think it's a close call between Salah and Bruno. I think for captaincy this week.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think I can really split them. Who do you guys like more? You think Salah versus Brighton or Bruno versus Southampton?
Salah for me.
Bakar?
Yeah, I think I'd probably go Salah as well. I'm hoping he comes good in the coming week so that by the time this game week comes up, we have a more clearer picture about the captaincy. But for now, I think given the amount of information we have, I'd still, I'd lean towards Salah, but a bit reluctantly.
And also think DCL is as good a captaincy option this week against Leeds as well. I see, I see no problems handing him the armband against Leeds United.
Even when you have your big hitters against with two good home fixtures.
Leeds United. That's a big hitting fixture in my head.
Yeah, play the fixtures and not the player.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Finally, Spurs Chelsea. I'm not looking forward to this one. See it very difficult to call. I'd like to think maybe a 1-1, 0-0, something like that. Doesn't feel like a very high scoring game, but
Yeah.
I'm worried that Spurs could put us to the sword as well.
I'd probably go with the 1-1 personally.
I have no idea how to call this fixture because I don't know much about Tuchel, so I don't know
Exactly.
what to say.
We
Yeah.
don't know. So I don't think either any would look at captaincy anyway in that fixture.
Yeah.
No way.
Right. Anything else to add, gents, before we move on to our teams? We are about an hour in, so we are on schedule.
Yeah. All right. No, I think we're good to go. Covered a lot in 1 hour. I think we've
Yep.
done a good job.
LR, your team's up first.
All right, I'll take you guys through my complete shit show of a team that's been disappointing me week on week. In defense, I have Martinez as my keeper. I've got triple City defense. I've got the centre backs as well as Cancelo. Cancelo is somebody who I bought in this week. I'm really happy about that. I have Target. In midfield, I have Salah, Son, Fernandes, and Rashford. Stinker of a week because I had Fernandes and Rashford in midfield. And as my strikers, I have Bamford and Werner. So a bunch of underperforming misfits is what my team is. I was even remotely considering a wild card just after last night's disappointment as well, and just thought of fixing everything up. But I feel like I don't know who the right standout picks are at the moment, and I want to give it some more time, which is why I'm not looking at doing that. My problems in my team are Werner, Rashford, and Bamford. So I'll look at the pressers, see if Tuchel stays anything about Werner at all, and if he doesn't, probably get Calvert-Lewin in for either of the strikers. If I'm doing Werner straight up, then I'll keep Rashford for the game week. But if I decide to hold Werner because I'm far too deep and far too emotionally invested, then I'll sell Rashford and Bamford for DCL and one of the 3 midfielders I spoke about earlier.
I think I'd get rid of Werner, bro.
Yeah. You finally saying get rid of Werner. And I listened to
Yeah,
you on the
it's
pod. Keep
honestly
him for.
about time. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, if he comes good, I know it's going to feel a bit weird, like if you see him suddenly bang a brace when he get rid, but there's just better options out there that can be relied upon. I think with the game time risk is just, and the form, it's just not worth it anymore.
And the
Yeah,
price tag.
And the price
I
tag.
agree. Money is not an issue at the moment, right? Because I can get DCL for Werner or Bamford. So these two are on the chopping block. So I need to decide between the two. That's the thing.
Because I'd like to give Rashford at least one more week, because I think right after this, again, you have the Southampton, which is also a good fixture, right?
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
For Rashford. So I don't think you necessarily need to sell, and there's need to stop taking hits also back to back every week.
Fair. Fair.
Now, we just move on to Bakar's team.
All right, so I have Martinez in goal, Cancelo, Stones, Robertson, Son, Gundogan captain at the minute, Salah, Fernandez, Antonio, Watkins, and Bamford. My subs are Stair, Dyer, Soucek, and Kilman. I have no idea how I have survived an hour without mentioning the big guy. But I genuinely refuse to talk about him. I won't even be writing about him in this week's review. I got a text from my colleague who writes with me, Hamza, and he was saying, "Why aren't you writing about Soucek?" I said straight up, "No, I'm not writing about him. I
It
refuse to write
hurts.
about him.
It
I'm
hurts.
done. He's history for me. I don't want to hear the word anymore. I'm absolutely done with this guy. So let's not. I'll just pretend as if he doesn't exist." So yeah, so my moves for this
This
week
is the
are
most
they're
emotional I've seen you, Bakar, when it comes to a player. You generally don't get raffles. This is new for me.
yeah, it's just horrible getting getting my calls on him wrong week in week out. So it's better off if I sort of keep my
Who,
mouth
who,
shut
who
because
were
I
you
know.
considering starting him? Who was the
uh
call decision between this week?
yeah, I was, but I was actually convinced that he won't even do anything. So that brace completely caught me off guard. So I wasn't honestly expecting him. He had like zero shots in the double game week. I don't want to talk about him. Let's not go there.
No, what I will say though is, I mean, you've got a fair amount of respectable finishes, and that's been backing the data that you have. So I see no reason for you to change the way you're playing the game. Back the
Yeah,
data and play the way you like
thankfully,
playing the game. That's
thankfully,
all.
I tweeted right after the Soucek game that the only way the balance of the earth could be actually restored is if Cancelo, being the statistical anomaly he is, if he did well, because it would have been very fitting if two extreme statistical anomalies would have had their day, and that is exactly what's happened. So that's kind of taken me back to sanity. But I was actually going crazy after the Soucek game. I was.
No, I mean that's the purpose of the sport, right? I mean, different strokes for different folks. All three of us are very diverse FPL managers, and all of us have had good seasons and bad seasons. I mean, it's all right. Just play the way which is true to your natural style, and it's okay. Don't feel too downbeat about it. That's all I say.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good point. But
Yeah.
yeah, coming back to my team, I could easily save my transfer this week. The alternative is to go Bamford to Wilson. Bamford to Calvert-Lewin, which is something I'm leaning towards. I'm 75-25 towards making that move
How
rather than
much cash
saving the
do you have?
transfer. I think 5 million. So
So why
that's
not
Do it.
Bamford to Kane?
I don't want to double up on Spurs personally. I I I don't think their next few fixtures will be as high scoring. I have Son, and I think that's enough for me.
Make the
I'm
DCL move. I
I
like it a
might
lot.
bring Kane for that West Brom fixture, but I don't want him for Brighton and Chelsea personally because I think Son is enough. So yeah, I'm looking at Calvert-Lewin instead. If I can easily save as well, but I'm not sure. But I want to do it for the upside. I think given that I'm wildcarding in like 4 weeks time,
Exactly.
I think it's time to have
It's the
some
time to
fun.
take risk. Yeah, go for it. You're
Yeah.
wildcarding in 4 weeks. I mean, that's all you need to know. Just take the risk. Not like Bamford is super expensive and you're not going to be able to buy him back if he hits form again. Do it. Play the fixtures.
All right.
Right. Just go through my team. So it's Martinez in goal, Diaz, Cancelo, and Dyer in defense. Salah, Soucek, Fernandez, Gundogan captain, Son, Bamford, Antonio, Maguire, Sufal, and Davis on the bench. A shout out to Keenan Davis. Without him, playing the likes of Soucek every week would not be possible. So we must recognize who the real MVP in the squad is. So
Yep. Bakar is just looking down. He's not even looking at you. I talk about starting Soucek in your team.
I'm so done.
Yeah. He's such a likable guy. I don't own him, but I feel happy every time he scores because he's such a nice guy. It's impossible not to like the guy. But are you guys actually going ahead with Gundogan? See, that's something I didn't know about.
I think so, because like you said, I've recalibrated my thinking in terms of the output he offers. He's top of shots in the box. I think over the last 4 to 5 weeks, he's on penalties, and like you said, he's just in the form of his life. Every time he shoots, it looks like the ball is going to go in the net.
Yeah. Will that change if Salah braces tonight?
No, because Salah's away to West Ham, right? I think West Ham are a good team this season.
All right. Yeah, because I know how loyal you are when it comes to Mo Salah as well. And Son is the other one tempting you?
No, my planned transfer this week actually is Bamford to Kane. I'm not as hot on DCL as you guys are, and I think I'm getting these vibes that Kane is probably going to hit form over the next few matches. I'll see how he does tonight, but I've got I think some 6 million or something odd in the bank, so Bamford to Kane. I was going to do full confession Soucek to Grealish, but I don't think I can part with Mr. Potato Salad now.
Fair enough. You've got enough cash in the bank for Davies to TCL as well, but you don't want to lose out on the MVP.
No, and I don't want these benching headaches every week. I prefer having a simple set and forget 11.
Fair enough.
Makes things simple.
Bakar, are you set on Gundogan captain as well?
No, I'm not actually. I might even go Salah, as I mentioned earlier. It's gonna be between Gundogan and Salah. For me, I don't think I'd go the Son route as well.
Yeah, in terms of captaincy, I don't necessarily trust Spurs as much, but it'll probably be between those two guys. Let's see how Salah looks tonight.
Yep. All right, moving on to the question and answers. We start with them. First one is from Dom. What to do with Zuma? If sell, then any good replacement options other than the City defenders? Yes. Take a punt on Dean. Really like that out of position option. I think he's going to get you some points. So that's somebody I'd recommend. Zoph, should he hold on to Zuma at all or get rid?
I think get rid. It's too much uncertainty there.
All right. Next question is from FPL SMR. It's for Zoph. Given that most of us keep benching Soucek and now with the added luxury, Bakar, of pounds in the bank, should we just offload him for someone more expensive in the 7 to 9 million bracket?
See, I have a lot of sympathy for Soucek benchers, right? On a normal season,
It's rubbish. I don't
Except
believe
him.
that for a
Except
second.
him. except Bakar, right? Bakar said, "Oh, he only has threat from set pieces." So, I have a lot of sympathy for Soucek benchers, except my friend Bakar. So we must remember that we are still in COVID season, right? And he's still a good pick in case there's some postponement, a player goes missing, etc. So we just need to just selling him because you hate seeing points on your bench. It doesn't make sense. It's good to have a strong bench. So if you see a good pick you want, then you sell him. But just because the reason I'm sick of seeing points on my bench, selling him doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Funny how psychology works, right? I mean, I don't feel the pain because I don't own him, but people who bench him, it's funny how
He had a deeper average position than even Declan Rice for 2 consecutive game weeks. For fuck's sake.
No, I just remember shout out to FPL Irons. He said, as long as David Moyes is managing the club, Soucek is a good option. That does make sense. Next question is from Krish Amesur. Who are the whipping boys right now? Which teams to target for clean sheets as well as attacking returns? Any thoughts, boys? I think it's pretty obvious. West Brom, Newcastle, Leeds United, Fulham now in poor defensive form as well.
Even Southampton to an extent.
Fulham, I wouldn't put them in that bracket now, actually, purely because their goalkeeper is so good, right? The chances they aren't conceding aren't like that quality chances. But West Brom, I think by far on another planet in terms of being whipping boys. Newcastle as well. Leeds, depending if your players are from a big team. I think Leeds are slumping a little bit.
And teams to target for clean sheets, in my opinion, are Southampton, Palace, Newcastle, West Brom.
Sheffield United as well.
To an extent.
To an extent.
Yeah.
What a terrible performance it was, by the way. We looked so sloppy, so tired. I mean,
It's a
there
hangover,
wasn't
right,
one.
from the Liverpool game.
And we missed Luke Shaw. I think Telles was half the player that Shaw was. Shaw has become very crucial in terms of ball progression for United at the moment as well. So, no excuses though. I think all our attackers were below par. Invisible. Bruno was invisible. Rashford and Marshall had terrible games. So,
So
no
sort of the
defending that
game where a
performance.
crowd would have made a difference, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of mind-boggling things need to happen in the second half of the season for City to not win the title, in my opinion. All right, next question is from FPL Tinker. It's for you, Zoff. How do you make 50-50 benching decisions, and what is the best way to get these decisions correct?
Right. So I'm very bad at this myself, right? But I believe in a process oriented way of thinking rather than a result oriented way. Like, for example, I always play an attacker over a defender when in doubt. When choosing defenders, I go with bookies odds. If bookies odds are similar, I go with the more attacking one. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? The important thing is to trust the process and not look back with hindsight. Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. You have to remember that these things are 50-50 calls for a reason. They are basically a coin toss. Sometimes you call it heads, sometimes you get it tails. If you get it wrong, you can't beat yourself up unless you're Bakar.
All right, next question is from I think we should skip this just for Bakar's sake. But anyway, it's from Ami Manda 2. Can you please order the budget mids? Saka, Gundo, Rafinha, Soucek, Lukman. Bakar, you want to go first?
No, I'm skipping this question.
All right, Zophar.
I think Gundogan you have to put in another bracket altogether, right? He's not a 5.5 million midfielder, so let's forget him. Like, it's unfair to even put him in the comparison with these guys. He's on another
So
planet.
he's number one. I mean, just looking
By
at the price.
far.
Yeah.
I think, like, you
Yeah.
can't really compare. He's not a budget mid anymore. Like, how Mahrez was a budget mid in that Leicester season. It's just a pricing that they've got wrong. So I think from the other guys, it's actually quite close. I think Saka and Soucek I would put right up there. The only thing with Soucek is I don't like the next few fixtures. The next couple of games are against Liverpool and Villa, who I think are decent defenses. I don't think he'll be getting forward as much at all. So those two fixtures kind of worry me. Lookman, I don't think Fulham are scoring enough. Wouldn't put him in the bracket. So I think Saka, Rafinha, Soucek, Lookman is probably what I'd say.
Fulham have West Brom next though, so that could
fixtures
come
are
into
good, but
play.
again, I don't know. That's not a team that, like, I think there was a recent interview from Parker
Yeah.
also where he's focusing on, like, making them more solid at the back. I think they're better picks.
I agree. I agree with that order as well. Gundogan for me number one, then Saka, then Soucek. No, then Rafinha, then Soucek, and then Lukman for me. No disrespect, but that's my process, right? In terms of, I just like picking the more fair attacking pick.
I'd
always.
probably agree with that.
Yeah. Next question is from Aman, AV_Guno. With big hitters frequently failing, is it worth looking for risky captain picks every week like Cancelo, Grealish, Antonio, etc.? Whether leading or chasing?
No, I don't think so personally, because you'd notice that the premium options deliver more often than not, going from experience. Yes, it's always fun when punts like Cancelo, captain this week, for example, they come off. But overall, I don't think it's a strategy which is sustainable over the long run, because I think um, it's probably likely to lose you more points than gain.
There's a reason we trust the big teams, right? We trust the big hitters
Yeah.
because we trust those teams to be more consistent. So again, this is a question that reeks of, like, result oriented thinking.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's something I always do when it comes to picking risky captains, because that's how I have had my good season. So I'm not completely against it, but when I've also switched and moved for a captaincy option, is generally another big hitter. It's
Precisely.
flying under the radar as well.
Like,
So
if
just something I
Salah,
want to.
if Salah's a popular one, you've gone for Sterling. If Bruno is a
Yeah.
popular one, you've gone for Marshall. Things like
Exactly.
that.
It's I go for it. Go for a captaincy pick from the attacking options. That said, Aman, one suggestion that I always like making when you're planning to do something like this, and it's a good play, especially if you're chasing, is if you're looking to captain a different player, make sure that you're insured. Make sure that you're at least owning the player who's going to have 150% plus effective ownership in that game week. So that way you're covering a massive loss at least. And so if it works out, you're gaining massive ground, and if it doesn't work, you're not losing too much ground. So just make sure you're insured. That's just something I'd like to add.
Well, this is a good strategy usually.
Yeah. Uh, Next question is for both of you. Wildcard, now that we have a good idea about the upcoming double game weeks, he's looking at Triple City, Dean, DCL, Son, Kane, Antonio. Might be worth getting a head start. What do you reckon, guys?
I think it depends largely on his team, right? How which players he
Exactly.
has, doesn't have. It's very hard to answer otherwise. But the template in general is quite strong right now in terms of the players. I don't think there's much room to differentiate from the template, maybe from two or three players. And we don't know exactly the double game week matchups yet. There still could be upsets in the FA Cup. So I would hold on
Yeah.
a little bit.
I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, most of these players, Triple City, Antonio, Son, Kane. I mean, the likes of these players. I'm assuming they'd be owned significantly by the majority of FPL managers anyway. So it again depends on your team. But if you own even 50% of these players, I'd rather take hits rather than wild card.
Yeah. And things change very fast. I mean, if you wait for the right time, things change very fast in the footballing world. I mean, not long ago, people were talking about City not being able to score, and they were 12 or 13 points behind the number one team in the league. And now they're sitting comfortably on top. So things change very fast. So just be patient for the right moment. Uh, Next question is for you, Zoff. Warner, stick or twist? Should we wait for just one last game week to see what Tuchel does? Apart from the Spurs match, they've got some easy fixtures in the coming weeks.
I think we've covered it earlier. Sell. There's just
Sell.
better picks right now, more reliable, more consistent picks.
Yeah.
Revisit once he starts firing again.
If what if Tuchel says that yeah, he's looking to start Warner this game week or something of that sort, which is a positive indication.
It seems very unlikely that he would say that, but B, even then, I think they're better picks out there.
Okay, fair, fair. Next question is from friend of the pod, Perlo's Pen. Are Gundogan's points sustainable? Have non-owners missed the boat? No, I don't own Gundogan, and I don't think you've missed the boat. I think his returns are very much sustainable. A, he cost 6 million odd, and two, he's top for shots in the box amongst all midfielders in the 4 or 6 game week. So if you're like Bakar paying and swearing by the underlyings, and he looks in the form of his life, yeah, it's sustainable. He reminds me a lot of Yaya Toure when he first came onto the scene as an FPL pick, and how so many of us missed the boat. He's exactly in that mold, late run into the box, Ramsey, Yaya Toure mold, where
Ramsey, yeah.
yeah, he's just that kind of a player. So, and he's got an eye for goal at the moment. So, uh, if you own Triple City like me, I wouldn't spend a transfer getting rid of a City defender and then getting Gundogan in that place. But if you don't have Triple City, Gundogan is somebody you can go for.
Agree.
Next question for both of you guys. I think we already discussed this. Is Gundogan a captaincy option? How viable is captaining him against Sheffield United?
I think the only thing that worries me slightly is Sheffield United don't concede too many. I think they've conceded only more than 2 goals, maybe once or twice this season. But Gundogan's stats are immense. City are getting back to the top levels. He's on penalties. He's nailed to start. I think he's a very viable captain option.
All right. Next question is from Hitesh. He's asking you, Zoff, if Rudiger is nailed under Tuchel. It's a good option at 4.5.
Can't say based on one game. He likes to tinker. It's too early to say.
Yeah.
All right. I already answered this question, but I'll just throw these questions to both of you all as well. This question is from FPL_AA33. Is it worth using 2 free transfers to ditch one of the City defenders and get Gundogan in?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah. All the defenders are good picks in their own. I mean, it was one game week ago that John Stones scored a brace and Cancelo scored a goal and had given assist this week as well. So all three are good picks in their own right. So don't
But
mess about with
that being said, right, I do think you can replace, if you have free transfers and you have so much money, doing maybe a Stones or a Diaz to a Dean, and maybe somebody in midfield to a Gundogan. If you have 2 free transfers, it's not a bad move.
That's a good shot. That's a really good shot, especially if you're getting Dean in. I like that. Good thinking. Next question is from Lonesome Pandit. What one player would you like to become viable who is hardly owned? I guess the logical pick might be Aguero, but thinking about some out-of-the-box differentials and some rules for you guys, we can't talk about ECL or the Leicester Mids.
I've got 4 players in mind: Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech, and Christian Pulisic.
Fair enough. Who do you think is the most likely to become? Just let's put you on the spot. Who do you think is the most likely to become a good pick from Chelsea?
Havertz, yeah. I was gonna say.
It was encouraging that one performance from him. So yeah. Anybody else, Bakar, that you fancy who might become a good pick?
I'd like to see Ings become a pick again. I'd like to see Southampton pick up some form, which hasn't really been the case. Other than that, no one as such. I think we've spoken about almost all of the differentials.
Now, one thing, I mean, the one pick that who's had a very quiet season, and I'm hoping explodes. I think Sadio Mane, compared to his own standards, he's had a very quiet season as well. So if Liverpool do hit gear, and they're again, that depends a lot on Trent's form as well. And if he's putting crosses on Mane's head again as well, I think Trent and Mane are two players who could explode in the second half of the season because the caliber is there. So these are the two I fancy. Last question for all of us. It's from Desperately Seeking Dusan. It's a good question. How do you counter price myopia? For example, in my league, Soucek is benched by so many, but Robertson was started. Yet logically, Soucek was surely a better pick given Robbo is away to Spurs, but most wouldn't bench because he's 7.4 and Soucek is 5.3. Zoph, would you have benched Robbo for Soucek?
No, I would have played Robbo, honestly, because again, this is like a bit of result-oriented thinking, right? But
Yeah.
it's not as easy to say because, like, a lot of it, if you look into this season, I don't think the Liverpool defense has been great, but there's obviously going to be some pedigree you attach to Robertson, right? I think the variance was very extreme for Soucek benchers this week, except for Bakar.
Yeah. And when it comes to price myopia, right? You've seen Utkarsh and Bakar here sitting on this spot very strongly considering Gundogan as a captaincy option this week as well. So it's just like it definitely requires a little bit of recalibration in the sense you need to constantly tell yourself that no, his stats are good, his stats are good. Don't
And we've
look at the
seen it in
price.
previous seasons also, right? Like you mentioned, the likes of Ramsey, the likes of Yaya Toure, the likes of Mahrez and Vardy. I think when Leicester won the league, I didn't captain Mahrez even once. Probably why? Just because, like, it was a price matter.
Yeah. In that season, I didn't own Mahrez for the first 15 game weeks of that season. I remember it. All right. I think that's it from us this game week. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, boys. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Oh, we forgot to mention. And thank you so much for getting us to the 10,000, 10K subscriber point where we weren't expecting at all to reach this number so quickly. So we're very grateful and happy with the support that you guys have given us. And we'll see you next week. Probably same time next week. If there is some news that emerges at the weekend, you'll probably see us on Monday. See you. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.